Water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. Except for me, I can have all the water I want, so yeah. Anyway, hello there, Nate Jackson, Criterion Collection Viewer Guy here. Once again, my friends. Number 80, Lars von Trier's The Element of Crime. It's my second time watching this, and I want to say, and hopefully my last, but it isn't a bad movie, that's the thing. It's a lot better than I thought it was the second time. I mean, the first time, I vaguely remember any of this. I just remember the ending is extremely confusing. It still is extremely confusing. But at the same time, looked into some interpretations, and I think it kind of makes a little more sense now. At least if you read the interpretation you can find online. Because I had to figure it out. To figure out that ending. 1984, 100 and something odd minutes, black and white English. No, sepia. It says I should call it color, but it's more like sepia and blue. The whole film, that's the one thing that most people remember, is that the whole film's like in this very sepia. I think they call it sodium coloring or something like that. And yeah, so it's all got this very orangey hue almost for practically the entire movie. Anyway, so let me tell you about this. So if you remember the movie, I vaguely remember it all. This Detective Fisher, the whole movie is a flashback, except for the beginning. He's seeing this therapist, and this Detective Fisher is seeing this therapist, trying to get him to go back into his mind and figure out this case. So he goes back and like the whole movie is basically him telling the therapist, and we hear the therapist talking sometimes, and we hear Fisher talking to the therapist. And so anyway, so he talks to he's talking to the therapist, and he tells him about this time he was come back. I guess he was out in Cairo or Egypt or something like that, and he was brought back to Europe to try to solve this case from his mentor, this guy named Hodgson, who wrote this book called The Element of Crime, which is, I guess, supposed to be this like book about like how to catch a killer or something like that by getting into the killer's mind and like retracing their steps or being the killer. It was very controversial, so I expect, and because of that, Hodgson was kind of disgraced, and he kind of just lives alone now, and with this like kid, with like this daughter and his son or something like that. But anyway, so this killer, his name's Harry Gray, is going around killing these young girls who sell lottery tickets, and they're called the Lotto Murderers. And Fisher goes back on the case, and I forget the captain's name. I gotta look him up because the captain has he kind of butts heads with the captain's name, whose name I can't remember, and because the good old Azusa sent this to me. Of course, I don't have the cast name, so I want to look up I can't remember his name. What is his name? Kramer. His the police chief, Kramer, who's kind of he's very like corrupt. He's got a very corrupt way to him, and so Fisher kind of always goes above his head and all that. And so anyway, so he follows his steps, and he has like there's like this chart where like they show like the towns that he's killed in. So he goes to each town, and on the way he picks up a prostitute named Kim, this Asian prostitute named Kim, who apparently Harry had sex with, and they get together and have sex, and he starts dressing like Harry. He starts acting, or like he starts to like talk as if he were Harry, and Fisher doesn't exist. And Kim starts to get a little afraid of this, and the more and more we hear, he starts to say, I'm not Fisher, I'm Harry. And he starts to slowly become Harry. And at the end, like he figures it out. He figures out that like the pattern of the towns, and apparently he gets a note at the last minute saying that the family of the girl who apparently is going to be killed next contacts them and tells them, so he zooms over, he's going to protect her, and they wait together for Harry, and he pulls out his and out of it, and he like pulls out a handkerchief to wipe his brow, and in the handkerchief is this little like horse head, these little miniature horse heads that I guess Harry's been leaving around, and when he leaves it there and it draws on the floor, the girl finds it and she thinks that he's Harry, and so she starts screaming, and he, holds her closer and puts his hand over her mouth and tries to shut her up, and in this process he ends up killing her, and so he becomes, he definitely has become Harry at this point. And what's weird is that throughout and at the end, I mean I've already given you enough spoilers, but apparently the movie ends revealing that apparently Hodgson was the killer of like the last girl or something like that, because he had spent all this time, following his methods to try and track Harry Gray, and he had become Harry, and so now, basically Harry's ghost or whatever has kind of, his spirit or soul has kind of, entered Fisher, and then the ending just kind of, that's the thing about the ending. It just basically ends with Fisher kind of walking away and finding this little like lemur, or like this little lemur kind of ish animal in a sewer drain, and then he starts to, we finally get, we haven't heard the conversation with the therapist for a while, and so he ends up like saying, I want to wake up now, and that's how the movie ends. And I think originally I didn't really, I wasn't really concentrating on that and trying to figure it out full circle. I've read that a lot of people can interpret the ending as like, when they see the animal, apparently a lot of people thought it was there's like a little monkey on the shoulder of the therapist that we see at the very beginning, and they thought, oh yeah, it's the same animal. No, it's not the same animal. I could see how like you'd interpret that, like the wild exoticness of the therapist's room, it's a similar-ish kind of animal idea. But I think, but the one interpretation I've heard is that apparently like the reason why he doesn't wake up is because the therapist has basically, called the police on this guy, and because, he realized he committed a crime and all that, and he's dealing with the authorities, so rather than wake him up and give him a chance to, to get away, he basically keeps him there. And that makes the most sense, obviously. I think that makes the most sense. And if you interpret it that way, then the movie makes more or less sense. I think the one thing that's still a little weird is the dive. There's this subplot about this dive where these people like kill themselves by like bungee jumping over off a cliff with like, they break their legs or something, or their neck or something, and it's rather strange. But and Kramer's seen at the end trying to like stop them from doing it. But yeah, so that's all I really got to say about it. But yeah, I think it's definitely a lot. I definitely enjoyed it the second time around a lot more. I love the crime element of it. I love the idea of, this guy, this kind of like, this kind of nobody cop, kind of like deadbeat kind of cop, going around trying to, there's no real action to his scenes. He just kind of stands around in every scene he's in, just stands around and just says stuff, or just lets people talk and just stares at them, he doesn't really do a lot, except for when he's having sex with Kim, he doesn't really do a lot, really. And yeah, so I think it definitely, it merits a lot more than I originally gave it. I don't remember what I gave it, and I should have watched it. I thought about watching it before I did this review, but I can't stand those old reviews, and at the same time, I don't stand them. I don't stand all of them enough to redo them all, so I'm only doing these ones that I feel like I definitely could do a lot better, for myself at least. And so yeah, so I think, I don't remember, I probably gave it like a C or a D. I want to give this movie a B. Let me give it a solid B. The ending is still very, very unclear. unless you like read into it. I think one of the other things that was very hard to follow was this time around. Although the movie's in English, I turned on the subtitles because it was very difficult to figure out like um, when Fisher was talking to someone in the room versus the therapist. Sometimes you could tell like what was voiceover, what wasn't, but sometimes it was like the voiceover sounds just like when there's a shot. One point there's a shot of like Kim and Fisher talking. It's like a far away shot, and their voices are obviously overdubbed, but it's just in the same vein, in the same way as the conversation with the therapist and Fisher, and maybe that was Von Trier's point. I'm not sure. And the only other thing I want to say is I really like Von Trier's use of overexposure. I like the scene where I think it was Hodgson describes Harry Gray's death. Shows him like when we see Hodgson talking and overexposed onto it, we see like window wipers and we see this car like bursting in flames and all that. And so I thought that was really, really like a nice touch. I liked seeing those two, like the image of like Hodgson's face being wiped by window wipers. Very nice touch, and I really like that. So I give it up for Von Trier on this one. Still not looking forward to the rest of his movies. I know we've only got 3 more. I mean, Europa. Europa looks okay, but I'm not looking forward to Breaking the Waves or Antichrist in no way, shape, or form. So anyway, and if Dancer in the Dark ever gets in the Criterion Collection, Josh will be here reviewing it with me because he loves Bjork in that movie. So So anyway, that's it for now. So Element of Crime B. I definitely got this movie a lot more. It's still not my favorite movie ever. Still not the best movie in the Criterion Collection, but it's definitely a lot better than I thought it was. And maybe someday I'll watch it again because it actually wasn't that bad. So, I liked it a lot, and who knows? Maybe I'll get this one. Maybe I will get this one. I don't know. Although I think this one's out of print. No, it isn't. No, wait a minute. I don't think it's out of print. Is it out of print? It's not out of print. Please tell me it's not out of print. No, it isn't out of print because I've seen it in stores. Yes, it isn't out of print. Good. Then I will get it someday soon. But for now, so Element of Crime B, cool movie. Supplements, just the movie, the 50 documentary about Von Trier, just talking about his childhood and his movies and all that. And the trailer, and that's it. So Element of Crime, pretty cool movie, a lot better than I thought it was the first time. So B. Alright, so that's it for today. That's it for this week. Coming up next week, Saturday, we got Crazed Fruit, and we're probably going to make it a 2-for. We probably are going to make Sunday a 2-for, and do La Notte Bianche, and as well, because I've actually got a bit of some plans on Monday, so I'd only have time for one movie, and of course that movie is going to be Alcázar Balthazar. I'm gonna hopefully figure out how to pronounce that because I think I'm pronouncing it all right. But so this looks pretty cool. Hopefully, it's Bresson, so I'm hoping that it's no different than Diary of a Country Priest. How many more Bresson movies do we have? I'm curious. Wait a minute. Diary of a Country Priest. Oh, but he did do La Dames du Bois du Boulogne. God, I didn't like that one, though. And that was like in the 60s, right? 1945. Never mind, 45. Diary of a Country Priest I liked. And then, Alcázar Balthazar. Do we have any more? Oh, we've got a couple more. We've got Pickpocket. Oh, that's next season, Pickpocket. As well as Mouchette, Man Escape, 650. Okay, so we've got at least... So we've got 4 or 3 more after Alcázar Balthazar. And then, of course, next Tuesday, we'll probably do... we'll do either Branded to Kill, Tokyo Drifters, Story, Gate of Flesh, or story of a prostitute. Somewhere in there. We'll put the four together, and we'll have a little Suzuki-Appaloosa. We'll probably do we'll do one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, and then two on Thursday. And then we'll be caught up, and then the only two we'll have the week after that is Qui-Gon and The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and we are done. And then it's time to wrap things up and figure out what the top 28 of mine are, and then we're all done with it. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Don't kill little girls, especially little girls who play the lotto or give out lotto tickets. And don't get so caught up in detective cases that you end up becoming a killer in the end. And don't put lemur animals in sewers. And so anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on Sunday for Crazed Fruit and La Naughty Bianche. And until then,